Okay, afternoon, guys. We'll start with the broadcast section that's got no embargo, followed by an embargoed section for 10:30 p.m. tonight. No live tweeting or blogging during the broadcast section, please. Phones on silent. And for those of you doing the broadcast section, if you could use the handheld mic. Gary.
Hi, Ange. Hey, Gary. I'll get a few bits of team news. There's been talk about, obviously, Sonny and kind of his training time and match time. What's the latest on him?
I guess the main one for us this week's been Matt O'Sullivan, who unfortunately, during training, got a significant injury to his knee. So that's disappointing because he'll miss some significant game time, obviously, over the next few months. So that was disappointing because he was, he was contributing to us already and growing into his role, and with Ivan Perisic already down, that it's not ideal when you lose another player in that position. So he's obviously out. Brennan Johnson was close, but again, he's not quite 100%. And for us with the international break, we're kind of hoping that he'll get that time during that to be available straight after. And from last week, everyone else is okay. Sonny's fine. He trained the last 2 days, and he's no problem.
James Maddison as well, similarly, you have to wrap him in cotton wool a little bit?
No one's wrapped in cotton wool, mate. There's no cotton wool here. There's, it's only barbed wire and uncomfortable uniforms, mate. So they all work hard every day. They just have different programs. But Madders has trained all week. He hasn't missed a session.
You touched briefly on the VAR incident last week, but there's been a week of developments. The audio's come out. It was obviously an horrendous error. Now the dust has settled a little bit. What's your view on it all?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird one because, like, usually when something major happens, you get a sense of it during the game, and I don't think anyone really had a sense of that something significant had happened. Certainly, maybe I'm just focused on the game, but I didn't get that sense. I think straight after the game, Anth mentioned to me that there was a statement coming out, but even then the first sort of questioning I got wasn't really about that, and then it was only when I got to the press conference and all you blokes were muttering amongst yourselves and not listening to me that I knew something important must be happening, and then you kind of realise what's happened, and obviously fairly significant event during a game of football that you kind of, and look, whatever I say is probably maybe going to be seen through the prism of we were the beneficiaries of a mistake, and we certainly were that. There was, the facts of it are there was a legitimate goal that Liverpool scored that wasn't given. You kind of look at why it's not given because that's obviously the first thing you kind of question. Well, what's broken down? Obviously something's broken down, and it became pretty clear there was it wasn't an integrity issue. It wasn't a misappropriation of the law. It was an error, in communication, a mistake that cost Liverpool a goal, and that's what it was. And I get that it's an unusual one in that it's never happened before, but at the same time, we're kind of in a new space anyway with technology, where I think there'll be a lot of firsts with the way we deal with these things. As I said after the game, my view is that we want an errorless, faultless system that I just don't think exists and will never exist unless we want to turn our game into like other codes where, the event goes for 4 hours where we're explaining every decision.
It's a hypothetical question, but if you had been aware of the gravity of the error, would you have done a Bielsa maybe and given a Liverpool chance to score a goal?
I just don't see that as, if we want managers to be the arbiters of these kind of things, I mean, we've got pretty hefty responsibilities at our football clubs, but we're not the custodians. I wouldn't make a decision that potentially could send your club down or can potentially on the back of what my beliefs are. And in that moment, if somebody can tell me that they could explain everything that went on within the sort of prism of 30 seconds that I have to make a decision, wasn't going to happen. I mean, it's different if it's something clear, but it's quite obvious that it was a bad error, a bad mistake, like I said, through lack of communication, but it wasn't something that was easily explainable, because if it was, I would assume there would have been more uproar during the game than there was.
I know you don't want to talk about Fonz again, but you could go top of the league this weekend. Something to be happy about, right?
Oh, wow. Firstly, can I say what a gentleman Henry Winkler is. He sent me a message, and that's truly chuffed by that because I think I said during the week, sometimes you get disappointed when you mention your heroes, but yeah, what a great gentleman. And if he does send me a poster signed, I will definitely put it on my wall, despite the protestations of my wife. But yeah, look, if we win, we go top of the table for 24 hours, but who cares, mate? We've got to win. We've got to win. It's a tough game tomorrow. Our folks got to be putting on a performance and playing at our best, because if we don't, then it won't matter where we're sitting on the competition ladder. It'll be us focusing on a poor performance.
Niv?
No more props, please. That's been done, right?
Next week. Looking at Burnley this weekend, they obviously lost against Burnley on Tuesday, Luton Town. But how resilient do you think they will be, because they did manage to pick up 4 points in the last 3 games?
Yeah, I think they will be. If you look at all their games, maybe the results haven't been as positive as they would have liked, but they've all been really tight games. I mean, they haven't been blown away by anybody, and that kind of tells you that Rob has done a fantastic job to get them promoted in the first place, and they did that on the back of really some resilience and competitiveness that they're bringing to the premiership. They're going to fight for everything, and that's what we expect tomorrow. Like I said, we got to play our football, try and steer the game to the kind of things we want to sort of dominate in, because if we don't, then it becomes a real difficult game for us.
Because of the size and the conditions at Kenilworth Road, do you think you might have to adapt your style of play to play slightly different than usual?
No, I don't think so. I think, again, for us, we're at that stage where, we want to try and continue to grow our football, the team we want to be. We're still sort of learning aspects of our game, and the only way we'll continue to get improvement at the moment is, and sort of charting our course and our development, is by making sure that we focus on ourselves and playing our football irrespective of the challenge, whether that's the opponent, the venue, whatever it is. We're just at that stage where it's still about us developing our game.
I know it's your first season in the Premier League, but it's also for Luton Town. How impressive you've been with their journey to make it back, and also Rob Edwards was leading them over.
Yeah, brilliant. As I said, I think it's been a fantastic story. I obviously followed English football for a while, and I remember when Luton were amongst the big boys for a long time, and then obviously they fell down that pecking order of the football hierarchy, but to fight themselves up from where they are, it's great for the town. And like I said, Rob's done a brilliant job. Because even last year, they had there were some pretty big clubs that were challenging for promotion, and he got them up there. And I can see that in this team again, that any team is going to play them, they're in for a tough game.
Ali.
Hi, Ange. Giovanni Lo Celso, he's been named in the Argentina squad. Is he close enough now to be involved in your matchday squads or not?
Yeah, Gio and Brian Gill are both trained, the majority this week. So, it's good to have them both back, and they're both available.
I was going to ask you as well about Sonny. Obviously, you've been talking about his managing training sessions, things like that. Again, international base, but Korea have got 2 friendlies coming up. Is there ever a scenario where maybe this is one scenario where you might have a word with Jurgen Klinsmann, having been international boss yourself, and just ask, is there any way to manage him through that period?
Look, as valuable as Sonny is for us, he's just as valuable for his national team, and I'm sure Jurgen will look after him, and Sonny looks after himself. It's not for me to dictate to national team managers. Like I said, I've been on the other side of the fence, and whenever I was national team boss, I took care of the players, knowing full well that they have to go back to their clubs and manage whatever we could through that. And I'm confident Sonny and Jurgen will manage him through that process. It's nothing too drastic that needs to be done, and Sonny's the kind of the best judge of that. And like I said, he hasn't missed a game for us yet, so he's contributing significantly in every game.
One of the things you said after the game on Saturday, you spoke about Matty Wells and his work with Pedro Porro in the defence. Just wondering if you're okay about saying it, kind of knowing a little bit more about the structure of your coaching staff and who else works with what groups of the squad.
Yeah, look, I think I said at the start, I think I've got some fantastic coaches, and when you do that, it's about how sort of best you use your resources, and they've all got different skill sets and different sort of areas of expertise and things they're passionate about. Matty, is really passionate about the defensive side of the game, and Ryan and Millet work with. Millet helps out with the defensive side of the game. Ryan sort of looks at the attacking sort of side for us, and then Chris kind of oversees the whole thing, and Rob's the only one who looks after the goalkeepers. I wouldn't trust anyone else to do that. So it's just a matter of them doing some specific work, so that it's really important for us that all the lads get feedback consistently. The feedback I give is in a collective sense, but individually it's important that they have that time with at least one of the coaches. And for me, I just thought with this setup here, I haven't done it before, but I just thought it would work well, is to have sort of almost like line coaches where they look after a certain part of the team, and it's working well.
Tim.
Ange, there's been a suggestion that Darren England, the VAR from last week, won't be involved in Liverpool games for the time being, and perhaps for the rest of the season. Is that fair enough given the emotion involved, or does that kind of set a bad precedent?
I don't know, and I don't know if that's actually been decided, and I'd be surprised if they have gone that way. I mean, it's, as I said, it's a significant error, but it's a human being that's made an error. I don't think that there's anything that needs to go, too far-reaching. I guess everyone just wants to make sure, what happened doesn't happen again. And when you listen to the audio, I mean, and I'm no expert in these things, and that's the other thing, I don't ask managers and players about the rules of the game. We don't know half of them. The referees do, and we shouldn't be commenting on, because if a referee commented on the tactics of a game, we'd all be jumping up and down as well. At some point, we've got to respect their position. And look, I'm not one that hasn't complained about decisions in the past, and I probably will in the future. But in the prism of that, if they're made on the back of mistakes, then, mate, that's part of, like I said, it's part of our game. It's not supposed to be flawless. As the same way players, managers make mistakes, referees at times will make mistakes. But from my perspective, when I listened to that audio, I just thought, well, saying check complete, somebody obviously thought that's a good way of finalising things, and it's worked up until now. But I would have thought the logical thing was say goal for Liverpool, and there isn't anything. But I'm saying that with the ignorance of not knowing how it's really set up. But I think when you listen to that, you probably go, there's probably better ways of communicating a clear decision in such a big situation. And I'm hoping that's what they're addressing, not the individual who made the mistake, because I think that's a dereliction of the game. That's like me hanging out a player to dry just because he made a mistake. My role is to go in there and help that player improve, not to say, well, you're never playing again.
Okay, and back to George for the final one in this section, please.
Hi, Ange. You mentioned about the injuries at the top. How much of a concern are the injuries building up, and does it highlight the fact that you've mentioned a couple of times about the need for one or two more transfer windows before you've got that squad depth that you actually need to compete on a number of fronts?
Yeah, to a certain extent, but at the same time, if you're kind of looking at wingers, we've got a few, so it's sod's law, you kind of get hit in these areas, and it's happened to me a lot in the past where you think you're well covered and you get 3 injuries in the same. At the moment, we've got sort of, like I said, Ivan, Manor, Brennan Johnson, and Brian Gill, who hasn't really trained. That's 4, pretty decent wingers. You go into a season, you go, well, I'm pretty well covered, as well as, Kulusevski on the other side, Decky on the other side, and Sonny can play wide, Richie can play wide. So, for me, that's not really a squad issue. That's more just, the circumstance of what we're going through at the moment. But that's a separate sort of fact from that I still believe we need, at least a couple of windows to get the squad to where we need it to be from, if we want to, not if we want to, but if our ambitions lay in sort of, particularly playing European football. If you can imagine, if we had European football these last few weeks, it would have really tested us, I think.
And these injuries have given opportunities on the bench to some of the younger players. Veliz and Jamie Donnelly was there last weekend. What have you made of them two in training? And if push comes to shove, obviously you've brought Veliz on last week, but you feel Jamie Donnelly could come on and make an impact?
Yeah, look, sort of separate sort of cases. I mean, with Alejo, we obviously signed him and he came in and he had a little bit of an injury problem, so we kind of took a conservative approach, knowing the demands of the Premier League and our training, and he's had to work hard. But we brought him in as a first team squad member and to help us in that front third, and he's getting fitter now, and he's had a good couple of weeks of training, and it was great to get him on, and I'm sure he'll kind of keep working hard and make an impact for us and help us. With the young guys, with guys like Jamie, he's been doing really well. The under-21s have had some really, consistent performances in their league. Jamie, Alfie Dorrington have really, stood out. We've had them training with us, but at the same time, they've still got a long way to go and work. It doesn't mean that they're ahead of the pecking order with guys like, say, Alfie Devine, who's out on loan, or Dane Scarlett. That for all these young guys, there's still a fair way to go, and maybe part of their journey next is to go out on loan and before they become. But I guess at the same time, like life, in football, opportunities come along, and if they go on and they take it and they play well, they'll accelerate their sort of development. But at the moment, it's good being having them. The training level doesn't drop when they're in with us, and that's the main thing. And I think both guys, Jamie and Alfie in particular, are come along well.
And just finally from me, those two guys have been really good for the under-21s this season, and I know you've got plenty to deal with in terms of the first team, but the under-21s seem to be playing a similar style to what the first team are playing. Is that something that you've had an influence on, or is that more someone at the top of the club trying to get a one-club mentality going through all the teams?
I think it's a combination. Simon Davies is head of academy, and we speak regularly, and he's got a real clear idea of how sort of an academy structure should look and work, and I think it can't be sort of as a separate entity to the first team. I've never been one to say they have to play exactly the same, because I just think what you're doing at academy level is developing players, not developing systems, and them playing a little bit differently is not a bad thing. But in terms of the way we train, the intensity of our game, the tempo of our game, then there is a clear link there, because the last thing you want is young players coming up to our environment and really struggling because they're doing things that they've never seen or never felt before. And Simon, he's the link to all that. As you said, my focus right at the moment is on the first team, obviously, but the more we can get that sort of aligned, then in these kind of situations where maybe we're a little bit down on numbers, or we get some injuries, if there's a left winger in the under-21s, well, there's his opportunity, and that's what we've got to try and create.
Okay, we'll move on to the embargoed section for 10:30 p.m. tonight. No need for the microphone, Matt.